Okay, good afternoon, morning, good evening, everybody. Welcome to series one, episode 7. It seems quite a bit. I think now this is the 7th episode already of this. It's slightly different today. We actually got a podcast and vodcast together, and I hope that's correct what I'm saying. So I'm not quite sure of the terminology. I am a bit of a technophobe, so I'm hoping I've got all this correct. What that means is the usual will be going out on the podcast as well, but if anybody does like more of a visual side, this one will also be going out on a YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel is called after my business rather than the podcast. So you'll be able to see that from all around me at the moment. It's right behind me, but I will introduce it at the end. My guest today is Graham Nicholls from the Priority Academy. We'll get into what exactly that is in a few minutes, but welcome, Graham, and thank you very much for taking the time out today.
No, my pleasure.
Great. So same as normally to just start the show, we just finding out a bit about the guest. So if you could just give the people just who Graham Nicholls actually is.
Sure. What a great question to start with. Who Graham Nicholls is. Now, these days, I'm somebody who helps other people to help other people. So whether it's whether I'm coaching somebody to help themselves or I'm training people to become coaches and practitioners to go on and help other people. It's if I can help one person, that's amazing. If I can help one person to help 5 other people, well, that's fantastic. And that's kind of who I am these days. I'm a coach and an instructor, a guide or a mentor, whatever you want to call it. And I'm also a husband and a father, and they're massively important parts of my life as well.
So before you got into this then, who was Graham Nicholls then? What have you done in the past?
Yeah, so this kind of journey to where I am now started over 20 years ago. 20 odd years ago, I suffered with anxiety and depression and stress. All at the same time. I got diagnosed by a doctor as having all 3 of those at the same time. And I remember that day, the day that the doctor diagnosed me as that, but also the day that it really hit home was the day before that diagnosis. I was working in retail at the time, food retail for a supermarket, and I was doing a huge amount of hours, and there was a lot of pressure in the job, and I was having no time to myself. And while this one specific day was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, this had been building up for months, if not years beforehand, where I would swing from bouts of being as low as I could possibly feel to just being anxious and fearful that anything would be going on, or stressful and uptight and snappy and frustrated and everything like that. And it got to this last day. It was a Sunday afternoon. I remember it well. I'd just got home from work. I think I'd started work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd finished at 4 in the afternoon. So it was kind of late afternoon. And I remember standing in my kitchen, kind of with my hands just laid on the counter and my head down, just thinking, I've had enough. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I didn't know which way to turn. And my parents turned up at the back door. It was a lovely sunny day. It was kind of September time, I think. It was kind of late summer. My parents turned up and sort of shocked me out of that. And, I invited them in, and they went and sat down, and I asked them if they wanted a drink. With it being a warm day, they said they'd have a cold drink. And I remember quite clearly, and I can take you to the kitchen downstairs. It's the house I still live in. I remember reaching up into the cupboard and going for a glass, and I kind of missed it. And everything slowed down in that moment. You know, those moments in life where everything just goes slowly, and it just tumbled down. It bounced off the side instead of shattering. And I just watched it as it went down, and it hit the floor, and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. And that was kind of a symbol for me, because as that shattered, so did I. And I just remember sliding down onto the floor, sitting amongst broken glass and crying my eyes out. And my mum and dad came running into the kitchen, what's wrong on that? And the next thing I know, the next morning I'm in a doctor's surgery, being told that I was suffering with anxiety and stress and depression. And I kind of remember walking out of the doctor's with a prescription in my hand for some pills, thinking, well, how's my life got to this? How am I at the lowest point of my life? And I don't know what to do about it. People used to say that I was the most laid back man in the world. That was my tag at work. Oh, you're just the most laid back man in the world. And as it happened, that was kind of my cover. That's what I did to cope. And I remember walking out of the doctor. The doctors had given me the prescription, and she'd said that these pills could take up to 3 months to have any effect. And I just thought, I can't live like this for the next 3 months. And I think the kind of the defining point for me was I ripped it up and I threw it in the bin when I got home. And decided I wasn't going to take those pills. I was going to find out more about these 3 conditions, which I knew the words, but I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what depression, stress, and anxiety were. They're obviously a lot more talked about these days, but 20 odd years ago, I was brought up with the old man thing of stiff upper lip and get on with it and all that sort of stuff. And it didn't work then, and it doesn't work today. And I went on a journey from that point. I did, I wanted to find out more about those, so I did my research. I took seminars, and I went to seminars and courses, and there wasn't anything, like a video course or anything like that those days. But tape, for those of us who are old enough to remember tapes that you used to put into a cassette player and listen to those. And I found life coaching, and that really did start my journey. I kind of went to life coaching and NLP and the journey after that. And at some point, I realized that I was helping myself with this. And because I was helping myself, the tools I was gaining, I could then go on and help others, because I knew there must be more people that felt like this. The one thing people, I think, get trapped into sometimes when you're suffering with those conditions is we feel very, very alone. Like we're the only ones suffering from it and nobody can help. And you can't talk to anybody again because of that thing, stiff upper lip and get on. And people feel they can't talk to you about it. But what I decided was, if I could possibly help somebody else with the tools I was learning, then that's what I was going to do. And it had always been inside me that I wanted to help people right from a kid. So this kind of fitted nicely. And over the years, I've learned countless different helping ways, from CBT to hypnosis and EFT tapping and things like that. And I now use that to coach people, but I also use it to train people. I started my own online academy where I train people to be life coaches or practitioners or helpers of any description, but also to it's kind of a joint thing. People either come and start the courses to help themselves, or they try to help others. But the aim is that it's both of those things. It's kind of a joint thing. We help ourselves by helping others. We help ourselves by learning. And that's kind of where it got to. And these days, I'm very fortunate that people have taken my courses, and I started a community again so that people realize that they're not on their own. The one thing about the helping industry and becoming a coach or a practitioner, whatever you call yourself, is that can be quite a lonely place as well, particularly in these days where COVID's kind of taken over and destroyed the in-person meeting. So we're all doing it much like me and you are now. We're all doing it by a screen, which means people are sat in their homes or in an office, their own little office, like I am, like you are, and we talk to that person on the screen and they don't see anybody else. It's a very lonely place. So I wanted to create a community where whether people are trying to help themselves or whether they're trying to help others, they can come and be part of something that's compassionate, that's caring, that's helpful, that they can ask questions, that they can share their fears and get encouragement or even get help from other people. And that's kind of where I got to today. And it's been a long, long journey, and it's been a hard journey as well. And I think coming from where I came from, coming from knowing what depression, anxiety, and stress feels like, it gives me a real appreciation for what people are going through and hopefully how I can help them. But the biggest thing is to help people, much like you've done with your podcast, is to start talking about this stuff. There's been a lot over the last 2 or 3 years where people are saying we need to start talking, and the more people that are saying that, and the more podcasts like yourself that's bringing out, the more people are encouraged to talk about it, because it really is cathartic just to get it off your chest. And that's my aim. Is my future purpose is more working to help support and encourage people to move out of that area of, people call it mental health. I prefer the term emotional health, because mental health suggests that it's just up there, and it's far from just up there. So I prefer the term emotional health, but that's kind of my long-term aim. The Priority Academy is very much about where I'm helping other people to help other people, but there's a future there for me where I'm helping and really getting into that area, that emotional health area.
And thank you very much for that. It was a great explanation of it all. Predominantly, I'll come back to the periodic CAD in a moment, but for people to understand, when you look back on when you got the diagnosis, there's two things that stick out right away. It's like, for someone been through that, one, what did it feel like for you to be told those things? And secondly, you made a great choice when you walked out and said you ripped up the prescription, which is I thought it was a strong thing to do, but at the same time, it could have been looked at as, was it the right thing to do? How did you cope then until you could find yourself on the right path? So what did you feel like when you first get told the diagnosis, and how did you originally manage to cope yourself?
Sure. So the first thing I think I felt when the doctor said or diagnosed me with those was confusion. I think the first thing was what, I never associated myself as suffering from any of those, let alone all of those. So it's complete confusion. I remember sitting there for a couple of minutes, and when she spoke to me again, it kind of jolted me because I was off in my own world, just completely confused about what was going on. How did I manage to cope? I managed to cope by learning as much as I could. That was my coping mechanism. When I ripped up that prescription, I had a choice. I could have ripped it up, thrown it in the bin, and just carried on the way I was going, and probably just got worse. And then in another 2-3 months, had another breakdown, and then have no choice but to go on pills. Or I had a choice to learn as much as I could about these conditions, and then hopefully learn how I could help myself through them. But I couldn't learn to help myself through them until I knew what they were.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing for me, was that's how I coped, if you like, was to learn as much about these conditions to start with, and then figure out how I can work, with them and around them to get out of them. I think in the middle of all of that, I think the confusion with the doctor to start with, and the learning right in the middle there, was absolute fear, absolute dread of, how have I got to this place? What happens if I can't help myself? Why am I feeling like this? Why does this always happen to me? Those sort of really, really unproductive questions were just driving fear in me. And I could have gone one or two ways with that fear. I could have listened to the fear, started taking the tablets, and have carried on them for the rest of my life. Or I could have gone, do you know what, that yes, that's one thing, but I need to put that over there, because before I take a tablet that's going to take 3 months to even have an effect, I need to know more about this stuff. And if I get, I knew at that point as well, that if I got to the point where I knew more about this stuff and a tablet was the right thing to do, I would have done it. But I needed to know first. And fear might have driven me a bit in that way as well, because I'm fearful of getting hooked on a tablet for the rest of my life as well.
You've made some really great points there. I think that for people who's maybe not been through this, not understanding, is the first thing you said about the confusion when they explain it to you, because so many people this happens to don't associate themselves with the terms of the depression, anxiety, looking at stress, worried. Oh God, I remember I worried about something, but it's nothing. I worry about things all the time, but they don't realise how it builds up. And a lot of time it builds up that slowly that you don't really associate yourself or look at yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, I suffer from these things. And it can be a great thing if you've got the strength that you've actually did. Some people may find that they need to listen to a doctor, maybe medicalisation is right for them initially, until they can get to a stage when they're able to accept what the issue is with themselves, and then they can deal with it. I think that's the big thing, is getting the beginning, is you manage to have that inner strength, and you had a perception, is knowing that there is something else out there you need to find. Some people may not find that, and their strength comes from the fact of, yeah, they can listen to doctors and take the initial bit they need to do, whether it's the medicalisation, whether it's counselling theories for them. Try whatever it is and see what's right for them. And they will find their own journey. Everybody's journey is totally different, and they need to find themselves what's the next step to take. But the acceptance part, I think, is such a big thing. I keep hearing people say, you took that on board and you went to find out. When did you actually accept that there was an actual thing with yourself, that it was an issue that you had to deal with?
I think, and you make some good points there, that, I'm not saying that people should go to the doctors and the doctors give them a prescription and they rip it up and throw it in the bin. I'm not saying that at all. It's about making the right choice for you. And
Yep.
for the right choice for me was to find out more first. And I wouldn't suggest anybody do what I did. It's got to be the right choice for the person. It's a great point to make, and I appreciate you making that. I think when I found out what the right choice was for me, when I found out about these conditions, and I found out that they were all linked, and that they all had, while separate symptoms, they all had a commonality to them. And that meant if I could break down one of them, there's every chance I could break down all three at the same time. It wasn't about, right, I'll deal with that one first and that one first and that. It didn't work like that. Because there's such a commonality between them, I knew if I could break down one, then the others would fall by the wayside as well. And I'm not saying at that point that depression goes away forever. We all get a bit depressed sometimes. We all get a bit down. I still get anxious sometimes, and I have to deal with it. I still get stressed, and my wife will certainly tell you that I get stressed sometimes. But you learn how to deal with it more effectively, and you don't let that build-up come. If you can deal with it, Tony Robbins has a great saying: "Destroy the monster while it's small." Because if you can destroy it while it's that big, you can cope with it. If you're trying to deal with it when it's Godzilla size, then you're going to struggle. And I think that was the big point for me, was when I found out what they were and how interlinked they were, then I could make a decision about, yes, I can deal with it on my own, or I need some medication to help.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. And as I was saying, everybody will find their own way with that. But there's some things on the path that people still have times, and you had a really good point, Graham, about that it doesn't go away as such. It's something you're always on a journey. You'll deal with it probably the rest of your life. But one you did say I really love is the emotional health. And I've got a habit of saying as well as mental health. And what I say to everybody is, every single person on this earth has got mental health, if that's the one to call it. But emotional health the same, because people forget sometimes that the mental side and the physical side are interlinked. So if you are down, that can be why you feel groggy, you feel lousy, you don't feel right, you feel lethargic, and it's because the mental health is bringing the emotional down, which affects your body as well. And then, but if you've got any injuries, illnesses, that affects your mental health as well. So you go up with peaks and troughs every day, but the word emotional makes people understand a bit easier, because what people don't always understand, and a simple analogy I was given years ago, is when you look at your brain, how it works, you look at your creative side or your logical side, the thought side, that is like 5 or 10% of that we use in our brain. The 90% is the unconscious or subconscious, some people call it. And if you're looking at that and you think about it, then you think about if you've got an issue, a logical issue, you think you're dealing with something, the emotional is that big, the emotional will always win. The emotional side always outweighs the logical side. It's always going to be that way. There's not a lot anybody can change with that. But it's how you look at it yourself, and how you said, great, it's how you interpret the symptoms for yourself and tell you, how am I going to deal with them, and deal with them one at a time. Yeah, to always take that first step. The first step is to say, okay, there is a problem, that acceptance that you've got that, taking the first step towards it. And I said I'd come back to the Priority Academy because you gave a good description of it, but I think what you're not very good is blowing your own trumpet on it. If you actually can explain then to people, rather than me doing it, how many courses have you actually done? I mean, how many choices of courses do people have on the academy? How many period students have you had go through that? And how many do you have? And there's a brilliant group, a Facebook group that you have part of the academy. If you look at the three of them together, so one, how many students, courses have you got? How many students have you had? And how many is in the academy now?
Okay, so I think now there are over 30 courses. And some of those are what I class as practitioner level courses. So they are teaching you to help somebody else. So maybe teaching you to be a life coach, or teaching you to be an NLP practitioner, as an example. Others of those I class as personal development courses. So they might be courses on having more confidence, or getting over stress, or things like that. So there's a mixture of those. I think there's, if I'm right, there's 16 practitioner level courses, and then there's a whole bunch of other courses and stuff as well. Currently, we are about 85,000 people have taken those courses, something along those lines, at least one of those courses, and some people have taken more than one of them as well. And then we have a Facebook group that's just literally the other day gone past 15,000 people in it, which is there to, as I said earlier, to really help people in any way possible. If somebody wants to ask a question about NLP or EFT or something like that, or meditation, they can go in there and ask that. On the other hand, if they're struggling with something, they can go in there and ask for other people's perceptions on that, and maybe just open up their own perceptions, because that's something we struggle with is, if we get blinkered into that perception, we don't see other choices. Whereas if somebody can ask, and the group is phenomenal, the community that's come together in there. I think somebody asked a question last night, overnight UK time, because they were in the States or something, and by this morning it had got 65 answers, and they're all helpful. They're all, really want to help answers. And I just said the community has just become something that's so special. But again, it's about showing that you're not alone. Even if so many people interact in there, but there's people in there that don't interact. But if they go in there and they can read the post and they can learn something, or they can take something away from it, then that's what it's there for as well. Whether you want to interact and ask questions or help other people, or whether you just want to read through some of the posts and understand you're not alone in whatever aspect of life. And being alone can be a really horrible feeling, whether it's in those emotional states or whether it's in becoming a life coach and practitioner. That can be a really, really lonely place. And that's the starting reason of me building that community.
And it's why I said I'd come back to that, because when you were describing it earlier, you said if you could help one person to help others, it would be great. You've actually got 85,000 that you've sold out. You've got 15,000 in that group. That is an achievement that's unbelievable. Probably you can never imagine that when you started out in your journey, that you would even get this far with it. But it shows people what can happen. Someone who came through, who was diagnosed then with anxiety, with stress, depression, people at times label themselves these things. So I had somebody introduce themselves to not that long ago, came wanting to chat with me, and they introduced themselves as John, I'm depressed. And I thought his name was John something else. And I said that to him and he just froze for a second. He went, what do you mean? I went, you're not depressed. There's something you suffer from, maybe depression, but people seem to label themselves or make it out this is them as if it engulfs them. But what you've managed to do is build a community that people can become part of. And as you said, they don't always have to interact. Some people maybe shy, or some people just don't feel confident doing that. But what they are able to do is take things away every single day if they need it. That loneliness feeling through COVID, so many people, practitioners working alone can be, and I know because I work from this little office, this little room, but we've got that always there. And you can put anything every day, just saying, having a tough day, you're having this is the situation, or I've got this client and I've got this. And you said there, 60 people overnight, it's amazing the support you get. You need to be applauded for one, what you've achieved after getting that and get told at the beginning. But more so, be honest, and I'll be honest with everybody as well, is that I've lost count how many courses of Graham's I've actually done. I think 7, 8, something like that, 8 or 9. But one you've not even mentioned there is not only your course is good for people to self-develop themselves as in how they feel, or to look at maybe self-hypnosis or CBT or anything like that when they can use themselves, but you're actually helping to develop not just individually, but even as for a business perspective. You don't just leave them saying, okay, these are practitioner courses, but what do we do once they've got that? Well, you've got other courses there. I know, because it helped me set my business up. For people don't realise what you can see around me now, this wouldn't be here than now if it wasn't for Graham's courses. The brilliant ones for the Kickstarter course gave me what I needed. I was getting made redundant. I wasn't sure 100% what I was going to do. I know I love doing this, and I've been training this for the last 2 years. But because the journey I was on as well, if I hadn't have done that course, I'd probably be still sitting there all the time now saying, okay, I want to do that, but, and people always put the button, but I've been pain, but I'm not really right today, but I'm not good enough. Instead of changing the word but, I think it's one of the closest to and. So yeah, I can do this today and I have got pain. Yes, I can do this today and I accept I'll have limitations. It's something you learn from all of them, that people, if I can say to anybody that's out there, is to look at one of these courses and try any of them, because there's something that Graham has not mentioned around. And one of the biggest things for people that puts them off maybe getting into the self-development field is cost. Trying to set up for yourself, or even to look at develop yourself if you're suffering. No offence, but the NHS at the moment to me still is overstretched. and they're a brilliant service. And I can say that because my wife's a nurse. I would never criticise it in any way. But you mentioned earlier about taking pills take 3 months. But also you can go for a diagnosis now and get your diagnosis you had all those years ago and get told we'll get you an appointment in 14 or 15 or 16 months time. And people cannot wait that. If they're that bad just now, what they're going to be like in 16 months. But you've done something with your courses to help people with that. You might tell us what you did?
Yeah, sure. Well, when I was training in life coaching and NLP and that, which was, again, many years ago, there wasn't online learning. You had to go and stay in a hotel and stuff. And I paid thousands, and I mean thousands for one course in some cases. And I'll hold my hands up. In some cases, I paid on a credit card and then paid it off over months because I couldn't afford it. Yeah, I knew I wanted to do it. But price for a long, long time has always been a barrier to the helping industry, because it was thousands of pounds. And still to this day, even online courses, I see them selling for £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 for like a 12-week course. And I just, who really can afford that, particularly in the climate we're in at the moment with COVID? So it very much became, when I started the Priority Academy 3 years ago, or just about 3.5 years ago now, it very much became my goal to remove price as a barrier as much as I possibly could. So my courses on the Priority Academy sell for anywhere between £7 and £10, or I think that's about $9 and $13 if you want to put it into that perspective. Purely because I don't want people to say I can't afford that. I want to be a life coach and I want to help other people, but I can't afford the training. I want to learn how to do meditation and teach others meditation and help with that, but I can't afford the training. I don't want that. There's so many amazing people out there that have a helping in their heart. It's what they want to do. It's who they want to be. And they are not able to do that because they don't have the $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, £5,000, dollars, whatever it is, to do it. And the world needs those people right now, and has done for the last 5 or 6 years, and will do for many years to come. The world needs those people. So if I can help by allowing those people to not have price as a barrier, then that's what I do. So I always price my courses at that low point. People say, oh, you should charge more, and I get told that all the time. And you'll know, a couple of weeks ago I released a membership so that people get all my courses on a monthly recurring payment, which again I've made as cheap as possible so that people can afford it. And I got no end of messages after that saying, you're not charging enough for this, Graham. You could be charging this amount or that amount. And that's not the point. It really isn't. Don't get me wrong. I still have to, pay my mortgage and feed my family and all of that sort of stuff. But if I can do that and help somebody else without price being a barrier, then that kind of solves two big things in my life. So my courses will always stay at low prices. That's without doubt. I can't imagine ever charging thousands of pounds for a course.
It's amazing things, especially, for somebody who wants to set things up themselves, but especially for people who just want to help themselves. It makes it so accessible. So thank you for all you do with that. That is amazing work. But where can they get it then? So if someone listening to this today or watching this today decides that they would like to take one of the courses or find one about you, where do they do that?
So they can go to the website, which is www.thepriorityacademy.com. And from the homepage there, you can find links to the courses, to the membership, and all of that sort of stuff. You can read more about me and the Priority Academy and our mission to bring. The other thing I should say is that I think sometimes people see a course for a tenner and think, oh, that's not going to be very good. And the one thing I always aim to do is provide quality training, high quality training. And I think that the fact that people come back to my courses hopefully says that I do that. So even though you're paying a tenner, you're getting a proper training course that's going to provide you with all the information you need. So you go to the website and you can check all the courses out on there and the membership and whatever you want to go from there.
Okay, that's brilliant. So I'd say to anybody, if they are going through any of these things or think they've got symptoms, any of these things at the moment, one, always go and get it checked out just to make sure from a medical perspective there's nothing else untoward. But once you do that and you want to find out more, have a look at the Priority Academy, just look at the courses. What I would say to anybody is look at the content. and look at them compared to some of the other ones online, compare it to these other ones that cost thousands of that, and you'll see actually a lot of the time there's far more content, but it's delivered in a personable way, I would say, than some of the other ones, even face-to-face ones. But the one thing you comment all the way through it is practice, practice, practice. It's not all about just when people do put these online courses. You are make sure that people do the practice or it doesn't work for them. You actually bring that to your courses yourself by providing visualizations in them that people can do, experiences that they can actually absorb in the academy to do that, so they get to the feel of it, so they know if they're going to work themselves or with other people how it should feel. So they get that as well. So that's a brilliant thing as well. So thank you for that. And thank you very much for being here today. I've got one last question for you, and it's one I ask all the guests from here, but especially your experience. Look forward to this. If you could look at one person in front of you now, just like you look at me, and that person is looking for help today, what one thing would you say to them that they could start taking that first step towards improving their life?
Great question, Tony. The one thing that really helped me, and I've already said it today, is about educating yourself about you. Not necessarily going into life coaching straight away or meditation straight away, but educating yourself about you, finding out about you and what your stumbling blocks are, so you can start to get over them. Because we're all very good at just going at 100 miles an hour through life, and that's how life seems to be these days. Whether it's 100 miles an hour through social media or 100 miles an hour at work or 100 miles an hour with the kids, we don't very often stop and look in here and in here and learn about ourselves. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you can start to ask questions of yourself, why am I doing that? Why do I feel this way? How can I help myself to feel better? And just ask yourself some better questions. Then I think you can start on that journey. And that's where the journey really starts.
Excellent. And although your courses, since I would say of all these sessions I've done, all the podcasts are open to everybody, and anybody can actually get involved and try and help themselves. What I would want to show more than any day is two men here talking about this together and about this journey. Because the one thing I'm really finding still and struggling with is getting men to open up and have this discussion, especially more, you put it perfectly earlier, of a certain age group who are brought up in a certain way with the things about, stiff upper lip, or I hate, man up, get on with it. And if people can understand in the day what we've come through and what we've both achieved for us in our lives to get where we are, but we're still on a journey. It's something we still have to face. Hopefully other people can take something from that. And that's one thing I really wanted to show you why this is a vodcast as well as a podcast today, to get that message across is please don't do anything alone. If you are feeling any of these symptoms, or like Graham had, when he's mentioning what he had to do, go and get the help. Go and speak to someone. If you don't want to go and speak to a GP or that, then now, got my website, which is on here. Graham's mentioned his. I'm sure any tours can help you to try and literally talk to you to get you on the right path, what you need. Please don't sit back and wait until something happens or gets worse for you. It's the hardest thing I find at the moment it was for me, was opening up and talk to people. And I appreciate, Graham, you doing it, the honesty you have said the day. And now, again, the vulnerability you do put yourself when you say this, but it's done for a valid reason. And you yourself saying earlier, your life ambition was to help one person by doing this. Well, you've more than achieved that, because you've got one sitting in front of you now that's made a big difference to mine for what you've done. And so many other people that I know from the group as well feel the exact same way. So thank you very much from all of us. And thank you for coming today. That's all for today's show. This vodcast, then, if it is something that people like, please let us know. Said when you contact me, Tony Gordon at changingyourmindlimited.com. And the limited, as you can see behind me, is spelled LTD. So it's Tony Gordon at changingyourmindlimited.com. Leave a message there to let us know what you would like on the show, or if the vodcast is something you would like more of, or if you just want to get in touch, as I said, to find maybe some places you can go and speak to someone. If you get in touch with that, I can try and put you ahead with someone like that as well. But otherwise, have a great week, everybody. Thank you very much for joining in, and be good. Join us again next week for episode 8, when I have a student from the Open University coming on to discuss how the Open University has helped him to actually deal with his issues and what he's managed to do just now. We're looking at that. So hopefully come along, you'll enjoy that as well. So thank you again, and I appreciate everybody listening in. And thank you again to Graham for today.